This week on Christian World News, the Islamic prophecy behind Iran's desire to destroy Israel. Who is the mysterious figure called the Mahdi? Some believe he's already here on Earth.
Plus, thousands are fleeing persecution in Iran and flooding into the tiny country of Armenia. Hear how hundreds of them are coming to faith in Jesus Christ.
And serving the people of Israel, why dozens of Christians from around the nations are helping Israelis rebuild their homes and their lives. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. The Hamas attack on Israel was only the first phase of a long-term plan by Iran to wipe out the Jewish state. In fact, it's all part of an Islamic end times prophecy.
In fact, Iranian leaders believe Israel must be eliminated before the return of a mystical Islamic figure known as the Mahdi. Dale Hurd has the story.
Iran has been indoctrinating its fighters throughout the Middle East in the belief that Israel is the biggest obstacle to the return of the Mahdi, and that there must be an apocalyptic war that destroys both Israel and Jews around the world. Islamic expert Raymond Ibrahim.
So the Mahdi, as an English speaker would pronounce it, it's really Mahdi, which basically means guided. So he's the guided one, or in Islamic understanding, he's the rightly guided one. And he takes on different guises depending on which sect of Islam you ask, Sunni or Shia.
Sunnis, the majority of the world's Muslims, believe the Mahdi has not yet been born.
The Prophet said, hadith is in Abu Dawood, a man shall come towards the end of times. His name will be my name, and the name of his father will be the name of my father, meaning Muhammad ibn Abdullah.
Shia Islam, which is dominated by Iran, teaches that the Mahdi is already alive and has been hiding for over 1,000 years. Brother Rashid, a former Muslim, hosts a Christian program for Muslims called Daring Questions.
The Shia Muslims, especially the 12er Shiaism, they believe that he is the 12th Imam, and he was born around 868. So he just disappeared. He's still alive until today. His age is 1155, if you want to. So he's still living somewhere, and one day he will show himself.
Muslims in Iran believe the Mahdi is hiding in this well in the Mosque of Jamkaran. Pilgrims peer down the well with flashlights, leave prayer requests for the Mahdi, and hope he will reappear. Muslims believe that when the Mahdi returns, he will be accompanied by Jesus, known in Islam as the Prophet Isa, to rid the world of evil. Iranian leaders have seized upon belief in the final battle before the Mahdi's return to motivate its military and allies to fight harder to destroy Israel.
And a lot of the, Islamic schools or jihadists are being indoctrinated by Iranian propaganda in Mahdiism. And again, it always centers around Israel and attacking and destroying Israel.
Some believe in the next phase of its plan to wipe out Israel, Iran might initiate a multi-front attack through its heavily armed proxy armies in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. Ibrahim and Brother Rashid say the doctrine of the Mahdi's return means that any attempts by Israel to make peace with the Muslim world will ultimately prove to be futile.
Israel is a threat to Muslims, to the Mahdi, to the coming of the Mahdi, so they have to be eliminated. There is no other solution.
So I don't think Israel could ever have permanent peace unless Islam were to completely change itself and become not Islam, to be something completely different.
And Ibrahim worries that Iran might be willing to use a nuclear weapon against Israel to ensure the return of the Mahdi. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Iran has been rocked by violence and protests this year. The regime killed hundreds of protesters as security forces crack down on women who violate Islamic dress codes.
Many Iranians are fleeing their country and seeking refuge in Armenia, where a group of Christians is waiting to meet them with a message of hope. Chuck Holton has the story.
A groundbreaking cultural shift is underway across Iran. Months of protests against the regime have been brutally repressed by police, leaving more than 500 dead. Hundreds of girls' schools have seen their students hospitalized in a wave of poisonings. All the fear and uncertainty has left many looking for an escape. Thousands are now fleeing north to one of the only free and democratic countries in the region, Armenia. There are a lot of global geopolitical conflicts that are represented in this remote border crossing you see in Iran right behind me. You have Russia, which does a lot of trade with Iran. A lot of the weapons that end up in Ukraine may come through this area. And you also have Azerbaijan, which wants this corridor in order to reach Turkey and the West. And right in the middle of it all, you have this tiny country of Armenia, which is functioning as a safe spot for Christians and other Iranians who are fleeing persecution inside their country.
And then right here you see this river. It's called the Araks River. And the Araks River is basically the border between Armenia and Iran. And if you go a little farther to the west, it's the border also from Turkey and Armenia.
And this is the only border crossing between Iran and Armenia,
That's
right?
correct. This is the only border crossing that Iranians coming in, they can come into Armenia only at this spot. So it's illegal in Iran to proselytize. So as a Christian, you're not able to go to Iran legally to share the Christian faith. And you're not even allowed to have a Persian Bible. It's illegal to have the Bible in the Persian language. So what we've found is that the Persians come to Christian Armenia and they're coming to look for what Christianity is. Find a church, find a Bible, ask questions, and because this is the only border crossing and that they're able to, we find that thousands pass every single day.
And how receptive are they to the gospel?
Those that are coming from Iran are so excited to meet a Christian and to listen. And in fact, we have seen many, hundreds have come to faith in Jesus Christ. It's just that they need to hear. They need to have someone that is a preacher, an evangelist, to teach them and show them that. And they're so eager to read a Bible as well as they're not allowed to have those in Iran.
But the journey can be full of risk. This bus full of Iranians caught fire while ascending the treacherous mountain road en route to Armenia's capital, Yerevan. Fortunately, there were no injuries. Even still, greater concern to those coming here is that even after leaving Iran, their family and friends back home may be in danger.
I, myself, was beaten 4 years ago in Shiraz University because of hijab, because I took off my scarf. In Iran, women are, suffering a lot because there are a lot of rapes, a lot of harassment, and it is normal. It has been normal. No one understands that it is harassment, it is rape. No one understands it. They say it's normal. You're a woman, so you must obey.
As conflict in Iran persists, Jacob and his team are bracing for an increased number of refugees seeking shelter here. And while Armenia faces its own ongoing problems with Azerbaijan, more Russians and Ukrainians are arriving in the country, fleeing that ongoing conflict. And no matter where they hail from, Jacob and his team welcome all with open arms.
Pray that the Lord would send his lost sheep from Iran to Armenia so that they would find him, the good shepherd of the sheep, and that he would send these people to our church and to churches like us that are doing these outreaches.
From Iran's border with Armenia, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Coming up, in a time of war, Christians are coming to the Holy Land to help Israel in its time of need. That story right after this.
Welcome back to Christian World News. It's the beginning of the end for Hamas. That's the word from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as Hamas fighters are surrendering to Israeli troops in Gaza. Now he's calling on more terrorists to lay down their arms and end the fighting. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Dozens more Hamas terrorists have surrendered. The videos show them stripped down to make sure they're not carrying any explosives or suicide belts. The IDF says these surrenders show Hamas is crumbling, but cautioned it's still far from the end.
There are a great many terrorists who have surrendered there, and this is a significant thing because these are signs that terrorists who are in difficult strongholds have decided to surrender. This is a very important thing.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called out for more Hamas members to surrender.
It will take more time. The war is in full swing, but this is the beginning of the end for Hamas. I say to the Hamas terrorists, it is over. Don't die for Sinwar. Surrender now.
Netanyahu thanked the U.S. for its veto against the binding Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire.
Other countries should also understand that it is impossible, on the one hand, to support the elimination of Hamas, and on the other hand, to call for an end to the war that will prevent the elimination of Hamas.
New developments raise concerns of a widening war, as Hezbollah increased its rocket fire into northern Israel over the weekend, and the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen threatened to block any ships carrying supplies to Israel. Meanwhile, in the U.S. Senate, two opposing views on the war between Senators Lindsey Graham and Bernie Sanders. Citing civilian casualties in Gaza, Sanders told CBS Face the Nation it would be irresponsible for the U.S. to give Netanyahu another $10 billion to wage Israel's war against Hamas. But at a conference in Qatar, Senator Graham said the U.S. has Israel's back.
The last time a bunch of people tried to kill all the Jews 80 years ago, there was no Israel. So the one thing I can tell you, if it's your goal to kill all the Jews, you're going to have one hell of a fight on your hands. And the United States of America is going to stand with Israel without animosity toward the Palestinians.
On the international front, thousands of Europeans in Berlin and Brussels marched against anti-Semitism.
Because there is a huge increase of anti-Semitism in Belgium since October 7. We witness more than 1,000% of increase. So we are living in a very complicated period, and also to send a message to the Jewish community of Belgium to tell them that they are not alone.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
In southern Israel, Jewish communities stand empty and fields are filled with crops yet to be harvested. Hundreds of thousands of Israeli reserves are serving on the front lines, so there's no one to do the work. That's why Christians from all over the world are coming to help Israel. Paul Strand reports.
One major reason led 75 Christians from 10 different nations to visit Israel in the middle of a war, risking danger and paying high travel costs. They say it's to be the hands, feet, and hearts of firms' relief projects, which include cleaning up evacuated homes along the Gaza border and helping farmers in the field.
We have about 300 people serving in 5 different sites, helping to harvest vegetables, working in the agricultural space, and we're helping to repair and rebuild some bomb shelters, paint and clean to help these people that are about to return home.
Imagine taking all your vacation time and your vacation money and coming to a land at war just to help the people who live there.
This is a great time to come and show our love in practical ways and let them know that they are not alone. We Christians in other parts of the world are praying, and we feel so sorry. We feel their sadness.
It's a responsibility that you should take. We do need to take action. You can't just say, I'm standing with Israel and do nothing.
As the international volunteers are meeting Israelis, they're being asked, why have they come during a war?
And a lot of them are surprised that we would come now. And I think that's saying something, that we're not just coming to tour, but we're coming because we love you.
We're maybe 2 kilometers from the border, if that. And so people are here and we're picking oranges and lemons and pomelos. Trees are overflowing. There's fruit falling on the ground. And so I would say the work is imperative. Produce in this area makes up 60 to 70% of our nation's produce.
I am 15 years old, and when I heard that I could actually come here and help with people who were affected by the war, I jumped at the chance.
The members of the community where the volunteers are working fled from the Hamas terrorists after October 7th.
I'm from Yavne, Israel, and I just finished my serving in the army. I think that the people of the world would really appreciate it, that a Christian group of people from all over the world come here and just help them. I think it will maybe open their hearts too.
To see that non-Jews from countries they've never even heard of before are coming to serve and support during this time, it changes everything for them.
By the end of the day, homes are freshly painted, bomb shelters have makeovers, kitchens are spotless, and yards ready for the evacuees to come home. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Dorot, near the Gaza border.
Up next, living the Great Commission, how this church is setting its sights on making disciples and planting new churches.
Welcome back to Christian World News. Churches in America are closing their doors at an alarming rate. About 4,500 Protestant churches closed in 2019, the most recent year on record.
But one North Carolina church family has made it their mission to offset this trend. As Brody Carter reports, they're doing so with a goal of planting 1,000 churches in this generation.
So every demographic study that I've seen of recent shows that the group that is growing, maybe the fastest, one of the fastest at least, is this NONE group, the nuns. And they're no longer, they're very skeptical of institutionalized religion. One of the things we can get wrong is to think that they're not interested in spirituality.
J.D. Greer should know, as he served as the Southern Baptist Convention president from 2018 to 2021. At its peak, the denomination grew to more than 16 million members in some 48,000 churches nationwide. Since then, a slow yet steady decline has stripped away more than 3 million of its members.
Honestly, probably we're not practicing believers anyway, but them and then their descendants are dropping out.
Some may connect this decline to internal divisions over LGBTQ rights, a sex abuse scandal, and the question over females serving as pastors.
A lot of the decline in those numbers is it's cultural Christianity. But if you actually look at the statistics on the amount of what I would consider true disciples, those numbers are actually encouraging.
Today, Greer focuses on his own ministry in Durham, North Carolina, as pastor at the Summit Church, which has seen massive growth despite uncertainty in the SBC.
Because of the empty tomb, our road doesn't end at the grave. If anything, it begins there for those who are in Christ.
What we're after here is not demographic increase. What we're after is real followers of Jesus.
To date, the Summit Church has strategically planted 75 North American churches in metropolitan cities and college towns, with more than 500 planted worldwide. Their mission is to supply these communities with a church that can proclaim and live out the gospel.
Unfortunately, a lot of them are not reached in the church by just doing great music, great guest services, and relevant sermons. A lot of them have to be reached outside the church, which means that we have to equip our members to carry the gospel outside the walls of the church. That's always been important, but it's more important than ever.
Charleston Baptist Association is 270 years old and growing. Harbor Church is one of the newest additions thanks to J.D. Greer Ministries.
My desire was to be used by God in my generation to be able to share the hope of the gospel in an area of need, and I found that in Charleston.
Summit sent church planter Jonathan Lenker to start Harbor City Church in Charleston, South Carolina.
We came here with 35 people as a part of a launch team. We grew to about 60 and then went public in September 18th of 2022. We've since grown. Last weekend we had 201 people here at our service.
Since the 1700s, Charleston has been known as the Holy City for its religious tolerance, boasting some 400 churches. Lenker, however, feels that title has lost its meaning over time.
If you talk to someone who really knows the city, you'll understand that most of those churches are empty on a Sunday. The ultimate vision, like we will know that we fulfilled our mission, is to see the Holy City holy in truth and not just in name.
While the gospel remains the same, people and culture do not. This is why Greer and his network plant churches to reach new generations and help them grow.
God has given the church one commission. Jesus' Great Commission only has one verb in it. We don't see that in English because it looks like a bunch of verbs, but the only verb is make disciples. Everything else he says in there is a participle, which means it strengthens or amplifies the verb. The commission that God gives to the church in every generation is make disciples.
Finally this week, the cast of The Chosen is brightening the holiday season for lawmakers and staff on Capitol Hill. The series that brings the gospel to life has been a worldwide phenomenon.
Recently, a ministry to members of Congress brought producers and actors to Washington to celebrate the start of the Christmas season. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Gauka was there.
The worldwide hit has plenty of fans in Congress, and as we saw, members of the show enjoyed their time rubbing elbows with lawmakers too. With the lighting of the Capitol Christmas tree, the holiday spirit started to sweep through Washington. Inside, more Christmas festivities. Hope to the Hill Ministries invited the Chosen cast to meet lawmakers and their staffs. They also watched A Christmas with the Chosen, the third installment of their holiday special that combines bringing the gospel to life and celebrating the music of the show. Executive producer Brad Pello told CBN it's important to get the program's message in front of lawmakers.
I think it's very important for faith to be part of the dialogue around policy and governance. We were first created by God. He's the one who gave us our freedoms. And so when it comes to governance, especially in a free nation established on those principles, I think we've got to continue to bring His name, His principles, His commandments into the dialogue of governance.
Georgia Congressman Barry Loudermilk considers himself a big fan.
And it's very inspirational to me because one of the things that we deal with here is perception. You know, that people have a certain perception of what happens in Congress or what their congressman or congresswoman should be doing. And if you watch The Chosen, Jesus is facing that same perception, even from his own disciples who have a preconceived idea of what Messiah is supposed to be, a political hero. But Jesus is coming fighting a different battle of good and evil from an eternal standpoint. And so seeing some of that play out, but also seeing the human side of the people that we've read about in the Bible.
The Chosen started off as a crowd-funded project in 2017 and now boasts more than 110 million viewers throughout the world. The show's creators think that's because it's easy to see ourselves in the characters around Jesus.
Immediately we discover, well, they're kind of like me. They struggle with faith, or they might struggle with an addiction relapse. They're just like me. And I think in that experience we come to see Jesus differently because we see how they experienced him and how he impacted their lives.
Christmas with The Chosen premieres in theaters December 12th, and it all leads up to Season 4 debuting in February, with all of those episodes being shown in theaters before heading to streaming platforms. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Folks, that's another edition of Christian World News. It went by just like that.
It went by just so fast today.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Until next week, from all of us here, goodbye and God bless you. See you next time.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our CBN Europe YouTube channel or click on the video on the right for more content. Click the link below to go to our website.